TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donation. Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening, and welcome to our daily TV7 Israel News Bulletin, broadcast from Jerusalem. Israelis are elated by the return of the remains of the last Israeli hostage, Ran Gvili. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns the Ayatollah regime of Iran that any attack against Israel would be one mistake too many. The UN raises the alarm over the Islamic Republic seizure of wounded Iranian demonstrators in hospitals throughout Iran. Israelis are elated by the return of the remains of the last Israeli hostage, Ran Gvili.
Someone in my office came into the room and announced that they had found Ran, and we were just so happy. Everyone was very excited. And then, of course, we asked where had they found him. And so that was our main emotion, just happiness and again, feeling, for the family.
I feel happy. I feel elated almost, because we can take the yellow ribbons off of, everyone has them on their cars and on their sweaters, and we can finally put them away and hopefully never have to take them out again.
I think I feel relieved that this chapter is closed. I know the war has been over now for a while, but it finally feels like we can all start to heal together, move past this together, and really just as a nation, I think, come together and feel the pain for this family and feel really excited for what's to come and have this behind us.
The Israel security agency Shin Bet revealed that about a month ago, as part of an arrest operation led by the Shin Bet in southern Gaza City, a Palestinian member of the Islamic Jihad terror organization was apprehended for questioning. The operative was involved in terrorist activity against IDF forces during the war and was suspected of having knowledge of the burial location of the late Ran Gvili. During his interrogation by the Shin Bet, the terror operative spoke about his involvement in moving the body of the hostage between several locations and even pointed to additional people involved who were aware of Gvili's location. Among others, his interrogation resulted in gaining new intelligence that strengthened the understanding of the body's burial location in the Al-Batash cemetery in northern Gaza. The new information sparked an extensive operation in the Al-Batash cemetery, during the course of which the body of the late Ran Gvili was successfully identified. Meanwhile, at Israel's parliament, or Knesset in Hebrew, in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu opened his remarks during a session honoring visiting Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama with a blessing, praising God for his faithfulness and securing the return of the body of the last remaining hostage, namely Ran Gvili.
מכובדיי, אני מבקש לפתוח.
Honored guests, I wish to open with a blessing of thanks. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this season.
והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Amen.
The Prime Minister continued by proclaiming that there are no longer any hostages in Gaza, 843 days after the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates perpetrated their heinous crimes against the residents of southern Israel.
אין יותר חטופים בעזה.
There are no longer hostages in Gaza. There are no longer hostages in Gaza.
Netanyahu continued by praising the IDF and the ISA, or Shin Bet, for achieving the goal of returning all of the hostages back to Israel, and while naming additional individuals and the government in Jerusalem, the Israeli Prime Minister did not forget to highlight the unparalleled contribution of U.S. President Donald Trump and his team, who were instrumental in securing the release of all of the hostages.
אני מודה לנשיא טראמפ
I thank President Trump, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and their team for their great and important support. I thank the entire nation of Israel for the prayers and the encouragement. We completed this task, as I had promised, and similarly we will complete all of the other tasks we had set.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continued by highlighting that now that all of the hostages have been returned, Jerusalem is keenly eager on advancing phase 2 of President Trump's 20-point plan.
We are on the cusp of the next phase. What is the next phase? The next phase is disarming Hamas from its weapons and demilitarize the Gaza Strip. The next stage is not rehabilitation. The next phase is to disarm Hamas and demilitarize Gaza, and we have an interest to advance this phase, not postpone it. And that is what we will do. The sooner we disarm Hamas and demilitarize the enclave, the sooner we will complete the goals of the war.
Netanyahu continued by addressing the global fight against radical Islam and its totalitarian allies, which threaten the civilized world.
Today, two formidable forces are battling each other on the global stage. The radical force that wants to return us to the overthrow of the Middle Ages, and the enlightened modern force that seeks and sanctifies human liberty. Israel is clearly in the latter camp. In the face of the fanatics and who are greedy for blood, our soldiers embarked on an existential campaign to protect our home and our values. And over the course of 2 years, we operated with great force on 7 fronts. We exacted a heavy price from everyone who attacked us.
Meanwhile, amid rising prospects of an American offensive against the Islamic Republic of Iran, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the Ayatollah regime that an attack against Israel would be one mistake too many.
We will continue to stand alert against any threat from Iran, the head of the octopus that prepared the horrors against us. Any attempt by Iran to harm us will face a decisive response. It will be a very big mistake, one mistake too many.
Meanwhile, with additional U.S. and allied military assets entering into the region, the Ayatollah regime in Tehran is clearly eager to dissuade U.S. President Donald Trump from following through on his promise to the Iranian people. The Islamic Republic's ambassador to the UN in Geneva, Ambassador Ali Bahraini, hosted a press conference in which he warned that Iran would respond to any type of aggression.
There is an aggression, which is our red line, then Iran will definitely respond to any kind of aggression. The red line is any kind of aggression.
Ambassador Bahraini continued by highlighting that exchanges of messages are taking place in an attempt to diffuse tensions, yet stopped short from acknowledging any type of negotiations.
If there is any intention for dialogue, we are ready for that. Of course, exchange of messages has not stopped between Iran and the United States. There has been different exchanges of messages by our officials directly or through mediators. But to consider those exchanges of messages as a real negotiation, it is difficult.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Humanitarian Rights in Iran raised alarm over the fact that the murderous besieged forces of the Ayatollah regime is effectively entering hospitals across Iran to apprehend wounded protesters.
Lately, I've been receiving many reports of security forces, including plainclothes security forces, going into hospitals to identify protesters, but also to detain them. And I think, and that has been reported again, not just in one province, but in multiple provinces. And I think this creates a really chilling effect. I mean, medical facilities needs to be a safe place for everyone. And I think what this is happening as a result of this is that wounded protesters are choosing not to seek medical attention. And I think that would inevitably result in further deaths and injuries that really need to be treated.
The UN Special Rapporteur further underscored that the labeling of Iranian protesters as terrorists is common practice for the Ayatollah regime.
I think the rhetoric of labeling, peaceful protesters as terrorists or rioters, I think it's a way of authorities to justify the brutal crackdown. And I think it very much ignores that the protest was domestic and organically spread. And I think the narrative of labeling peaceful protesters as terrorists, the same narrative was also deployed during the 2022 protest. One point I just want to stress is whether the death toll is, 3,000 as the authorities reported or significantly more, like no one should be dying for demanding peacefully economic and political change in their own country.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you to keep praying for the Iranian people. Pray also for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan wishing you an Erev Tov, and God willing, until our next broadcast, Shalom from Jerusalem.